Kimberly.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul, the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and today I have a special guest with me. His name is Brian Reynolds. Brian transitioned from acting to bridge instruction, and he is deeply rooted in his love for helping others find clarity through logical play. Brian and his wife Samantha have fostered a thriving community through thebridgeteachers.com, where they prioritize mental dexterity and strategic thinking. His narrative of overcoming a career-altering injury and channeling that energy into bridge is something that I believe would resonate with you. So it's a little bit of an off topic for my audience, but the reason why I was intrigued by Brian's proposition to come on to my podcast was for two reasons. Number one, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you know that I'm all about maintaining good health and preventative medicine, right? And I also talk a lot about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And it's a very special topic for me because a lot of my family members actually passed away from dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So I have a passion for it, and my passion is not to get it. And so two of the ways that you can really help to prevent the decline of your mental state is, number one, staying connected with people, having a purpose and being able to socialize, and also using your brain. Because if you're not using your brain and working with puzzles and crosswords and whatever it is that you like to do to exercise your brain, if you don't exercise it, you will lose it, right? So it's not just about exercising your brain, but also about physical exercise as well, will really help to improve brain health. So with that in mind, because bridge is a social connection, right? You play with a partner and you could also play in big groups. Plus, you really have to strategize and think about every move that you make. So with those two things in mind, I wanted Brian to come on and speak to my audience about what he and his wife Samantha do for a living, how they created this whole entire business, and how it's helping so many people. And you'll hear some very interesting stories. So without further ado, Brian, welcome to my podcast. I am so excited to have you here, and you can take it from here.
It's really consistent in terms of the more you play bridge, it's 75% less Alzheimer's,
Oh, wow.
and other forms of dementia, other forms of, mental degradation. So it's really, really, I think bridge is sort of like the ideal way to keep your brain, you know, where it needs to be. And then from the social aspect, I mean, bridge is a partnership game. I I played chess a lot as a kid, and it never really took. I was actually pretty good for a kid, I played in tournaments and things like that. But the point is, it didn't really work for my for me because it's not a social game. It's the exact opposite of
Yeah.
social game, right? It's how much can you hyper focus on beating your opponent. Whereas bridge, yeah, you have opponents and you're trying to compete with them and you're trying to get them to make mistakes and all that stuff. It's definitely a competitive element, which is fun. But aside from that, it's a partnership game first and foremost, right? So when it comes to language, when it comes to you're talking to your partner, you're interacting with them, really good partnerships go beyond just the playing of the cards. They go beyond, you know, making the right bid or playing the six of diamonds when you should or anything like that. They go beyond thinking, they go to a place where you're thinking about your partner's problems, right? You're thinking about how to anticipate what might lead your partner to make a bad decision, right? They're focused on giving their partner the information they need to succeed. I say this all the time. Bridge made me a much better husband, over the years, because I met my wife. Uh, when I met my wife, we were friends for a year, and then when we started dating, she wanted to play bridge. She wanted to learn, and you need a partner, right? As it turns out, she didn't need me. Thank goodness she didn't know that at the time, because I definitely married way, way above my pay grade. But that's the other thing about what we want to do is like people think that the entry point for bridge is so high, right? Well, if I want to play bridge, I have to do this, 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 and this. And the answer is, no, you don't have to do any of that, right? You can, like, Samantha has a video that's learn bridge in 2 minutes, and she has a video that learn bridge in 10 minutes, right? A bridge hand is 7 minutes long. The nice thing about the internet is that you can sign on to a website right now, create a free account, and you can play bridge for free 24/7, right? So, but back to in terms of the social aspect, as my wife and I were dating and then later married, we were playing bridge consistently. And what I found is that the things that I did wrong in my life and in my relationship showed up at the bridge table. Now, let's say your spouse makes a mistake, right? I don't know, they left the groceries in the car and the milk went bad, right? And you get upset. You spoiled, spoiled food, you've wasted money, you get upset. There's no one to tap you on your shoulder and say, "Hey, your partner feels just as bad, like feels worse than you do about the food going bad because they know it's their responsibility." This is a moment to show up and support them and love them, right? But bridge won't just tap you on the shoulder. Bridge will smack you across the face. If you don't take care of your partner in moments, I don't just mean technically. There's some ways you can take care of your partner within the game itself.
Mhm.
But if you don't take care of your partner, you know, while you're sitting at the table playing 24 hands with them, then they're not going to perform better. They're going to perform worse. And then it's going to spiral out of control. So as Samantha and I, grew together both as bridge players and as human beings, bridge really was a conduit and an avenue to becoming a better human being because it's I think it's way more closely relatable to the human experience than a lot of games. So you've got that, right? You've got the mental health, which is just neuroscience. You've got the social aspect, which is you have to be connecting with a partner for any sort of success. And I don't know anyone who sits down to play a game and is like, I'll lose. Like, no one, like, that's not the human experience, right? And then on top of that, you've got just the base social aspect, which is even if you're playing online, there is a social element. This is what I love for people who are maybe it's harder for them to get out of the house or, you know, maybe they can't drive at night or all this other stuff that comes with, I took care of my grandmother for the last, 12 years of her life. I mean, took care of, she was still working and she was incredibly healthy, but, then there was a hospice situation and all that stuff. So I've spent my life around people who are more seasoned citizens than me. And that there are challenges that we face as we grow older, and bridge unlocks a lot of life that would otherwise be stuck behind those adversities, those challenges. There was a guy who played bridge every single day 5 days a week at the bridge club until he passed away at 101, and it was his thing. And he was a really cool person. I drove him home a couple times, and he was great. And but for him, it was part of the fabric of his life of, hey, I don't have to sit in my home or my facility or whatever. Every day I get up, I go to the bridge club. It's a reason to get dressed. He was a really nice guy because everybody liked to talk to him. But then there's all these social interactions.
Yeah.
So, but even if you can't do that, even if you can't leave the house. Like there, when I first started getting good at bridge, it was because my leg was fractured and I couldn't walk for 6 months, right? And luckily, bridge on the internet had just started. This is 1998, right? Just happened. There were two websites, but I was on one particular. I literally sit and clicked a mouse for 8 hours a day, but my brain was just working super, super hard,
Oh,
right?
that's great.
So yeah, so that's why I love bridge. I'm super passionate about it. I wish everyone would take a chance on it. It's not for everyone, you know. I have a friend who loves rock climbing. They're never going to sit and play a game for,
Right.
but
When you were talking about that elderly man, I was thinking about my dad, my mom and my dad. My dad passed on, and my mom's still alive. She's going to be 90, but they were big into bingo. That was
uh-huh.
the thing. And my
Yeah.
dad was suffering with lung cancer, and he would go for a chemo treatment and go to the bingo hall right after chemo. And I was like, "But Dad, don't you just want to go home and rest? Rest for what?" No, nothing stopped him. And he was great at bingo and he was always winning. And I used to tell him, those old folks, they're going to jump you in the parking lot, I'm telling you, because you're winning too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a social aspect. And I guess for my dad, like what you're saying is it takes your mind off your problems. You get out, you see people. There is a social aspect. You're not playing one against the other, where I guess with bridge, you have a partner. But you see the same people all the time. You make friends, and that's important. So, Brian, tell me about your company and what
Yeah.
it's all about and how you started and
Sure, yeah. So Samantha and I have wanted to expand our reach on bridge for a long time. You know, we've been teaching since 2000, I want to say. So
oh,
going on
so
20.
you teach people how to play.
Yeah,
That's how
so
you started.
that's our business. Our business is thebridgeteachers.com.
Right.
It's a video library. It's a subscription-based service. So for a small monthly fee, the subscriber receives access to all of the videos. Samantha has over 400 videos right now on Bridge. We keep them short. We keep them between 12 and 15 minutes long. Some of them are a little shorter, some of them are a little tiny longer. Anytime she's going to go longer, I'm like, nah, you gotta make that multiple parts. We just want to make it digestible for people.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's a subscription-based service, and Samantha's adding videos all the time. Like every time I walk into her office, she's in the editing bay. I just showed her I also do editing. So we're learning together. I mean, I think one of the reasons why our marriage has been like never really exited the honeymoon phase is because we've always like really enjoyed growing together. So it's like I took up editing and she kind of took up editing at the same time, and we were both like I'll hear her scream for the room and I'll go running and she's like, I don't can't solve this. And I'm like, I have that same problem. And then we'll do research together. But anyway, so she's constantly adding videos. She's constantly adding stuff. As our subscriber base has grown, especially on things like, YouTube, we get feedback on people who are like, that was a cool video, but I still don't quite understand this concept. So then she'll do a little blowout on that concept. And so yeah, so that's what we're growing right now. We've been teaching one-on-one or in small groups. We don't like to teach more than like four people or five people at a time.
Is it in person or online?
So everything was on person up to March of 2020.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the technology has been in place for us to teach virtually since 2015. I really feel like that was the year where we could have switched everything to online. And we spent 5 years trying to convince people that online was actually superior to in person. But people like what they like, right? There's a comfort level to it. And again, there's a social aspect of me showing up at your door or your, country club or whatever and sitting down with my boards, and I had a big box full of boards because we when we teach, we have two different modalities, but at that time we were teaching with preset lesson hands. So we could control what you were focused on, and you wouldn't feel like you had to swallow all of bridge at once, right? You could just take it in bites. We're big bite-sized people, right? We like again, we're trying to lower the bar for entry into playing this game. We wanted to make it so easy to get started that people go, oh, I didn't even think about the, the learning curve or the, all the different aspects. But anyway, so yeah, so in when the pandemic hit and none of I mean, like I didn't leave my house for 7 months, all of our students were like, well, will you help me figure out how to you say you're going to do virtual lessons, will you figure out how that would work? And we're like, yes, we've already got this figured out, but we'll help you. So then we did a lot of IT, right? We help people set up Zooms. We helped people set up, their accounts so they could their bridge-based accounts. And then we started teaching virtually. And 99.9% of our business now is virtual in terms of whether it's Zoom lessons one-on-one, even playing in tournaments with students one-on-one, and then the video library, which is really where we want to go because a lot of people learn, everyone learns differently. A lot of people actually prefer, hearing Samantha. She's an amazing teacher. She's really good at explaining things. She just gets better every day because she's doing it a lot. She's creating videos all day. They actually prefer that methodology to, sort of direct coaching. And it's just a matter of what the student wants. Also, there's only two of us. So it's not like if I had 100 people, email me today saying, well, I want one-on-one lessons, I simply wouldn't be able to accommodate that workload.
Right.
So, and we are so passionate about, getting this game back out in the consciousness. It used to be the most popular card game in the world. We're so passionate about that. We were actually part of a documentary called The Kids Table. It's on a bunch of different streaming services, but it's basically about these four millennials who were in their 20s at the time, learning to play bridge and competing in tournaments. And, we spent a year and a half of our life inside that documentary, coaching them, also like helping them understand the tournament world because that can be daunting for people. And again, I like to make things as easy as possible. If you said to me today, like, well, in 6 months I want to be playing in tournaments, I'd be like, that's easy. That's not a problem at all, Well, 6 months from now I want to be winning a national championship. That won't happen. Just like if someone said to me, a year from now, I want to be winning a national chess championship. I'd be like, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's not going to happen, right? But, but you can play. There are different levels of tournaments. There are different events within tournaments, and you can succeed, and you can have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, so our business is thebridgeteachers.com, and it's a subscriber service. People who play at least once a week, whether that's a lesson or playing socially, we really recommend that the lesson shouldn't be considered a playing session, right? The lesson is to help you grow your game. But if you're playing at least once a week, yeah, it's a huge difference between, people who play bridge, especially people who take lessons. There's a lot of research about how diligent practice also grows your mental faculties. And actually, a lot of my clients, when I was first starting, all of my clients were word of mouth. We did do some advertising, but it never got us anything. Everything was word of mouth. And what I found was people inside a friends group, right? Let's say there's a group of like 12 people, someone would start being different. They'd be smarter, they'd be more with it. They weren't actually being smarter, they were just accessing more of the brain they already had.
Yeah.
But, and if they were a bridge group, they would go from being the worst player in their group, which is usually what drove them to find me or Samantha, to being the best bridge player in their group. And now all of a sudden, these other people would be like, well, hold on a second. I want all these benefits. But I'd say the most shocking example of this was Samantha and I were hired. Normally we were separate, but this gentleman wanted us both to come. And his wife had been a top level tournament player, like in the local area, not like a national champion, but She'd been a top level player, and she was in her early 80s,
Mhm.
and she had just had a stroke like 6 months prior, and it had been a pretty devastating one. She was not her memory would reset about every 2 minutes, and she had forgotten how to play bridge, just absolutely forgotten how to play bridge. And Samantha and I did not know this, by the way, walking in. He didn't disclose any of this. He said to us, my wife and I want to learn to play bridge. Okay, great. Show up at his condo, and we sit down, and it's clear from the jump that she doesn't even know who we are, right? Like literally we'll talk about bridge for 2 minutes, and then she'll turn to her husband and say, who are these people? And then we'll play bridge for 2 minutes, and she'll turn to her husband and say, who are these people? And Samantha and I are like, we're kind of freaking out, right? We're like, what is happening? So then I don't even think he had her leave the room. This is years ago, but he basically he told us what I just told you. She used to be a top level player. She had a stroke, no short-term memory left. No, her long-term memory is gone, including her life. And I'm not a medical professional, right? And I'm just like, what do you want me to do? I don't understand. And so we're teaching her the very, very basics of bridge. And all of a sudden, it was about an hour and 15 minutes into the lesson. We set down a board. She pulls out her hand, she looks at it, and she goes, one spade. And it goes pass, three spades. She goes four spades, pass. And I laid a card, and she claims, which is something you can do, where you basically lay out all your cards. You say, this is what I'm going to do. So she lays out her hand and says, well, I'm going to draw trump and run diamonds and discard my two hearts. And she was angry that it was so basic of a hand, and she was ready for the next hand. And like for a moment, I saw the tournament player, and I was like, what just happened? And she was like lucid for like maybe 5, 6 minutes, right? She talked about some tournament wins. She asked Samantha and I about our bridge. She talked about bridge at a very, very high level for about 6 to 7, maybe a little bit longer minutes. And then all of a sudden reset went back to, the person who'd had this massive stroke. And that moment shook me to my core, because, my brain functioning is like the idea of, you know, Samantha's family has a history of has Alzheimer's in her family. Mine doesn't, but that doesn't mean anything statistically. But I'm terrified of that type of thing. So
Yes,
I'm like,
do.
is this like I literally was like, I went home and did research. I'm like, is this a thing? Like, can you literally reconnect your brain pathways? And the research is very, very mixed. It's very hard to do. It's very rare for someone to have a touchstone that strong where they can reconnect to previous knowledge. So it's very much like we don't know. The brain is still a mystery to in a lot of ways. But for me, I was like, wow, if I ever have a stroke, somebody, sit me down at a bridge table and start talking bridge to me, and maybe I'll come back. And what was really interesting was he fired us that night. And as he was paying us, and he said, I don't want you coming back here. And he was crying. He was just crying. And he was like, I can't go through this. I just like emotionally, I can't see her have these flashes of, being herself again and then go back. And I'm like, okay. And Samantha and I, and the long car ride home, we just talked about it. It was easily the most emotionally charged moment of teaching I've ever had.
Do you
Yeah.
think if you would have continued going back, that her memory would have improved even further?
I mean, I would have liked a shot, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I said, I'm not a medical professional and I have no idea. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was her one moment, right?
right.
But God, I would have loved a shot.
Yeah.
Samantha and I talked about it. Like our whole plan, if we had had an opportunity, would have been to put down really basic, simple hands. And then the moment we saw that flash of you're boring me, like put like something out of a book of like the most complicated thing we could find and like, oh, we'll try this one, and like just like challenge her brain to stay connected in because it has to deal with this actual like really high level problem, right? Bridge is scalable. That's what I love about Bridge. Bridge is scalable. Like I can give you a puzzle today. Like I had a friend, we were traveling and he said to me, I don't know anything about bridge, but give me a puzzle. I like puzzles, so give me a puzzle I can solve without knowing anything about bridge. I'm like, okay, here's your puzzle. And I showed him and it took him, about 15 minutes and he's like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm like, yeah. He's like, how often does that puzzle come up? I'm like, about every hand. He's like, oh, cool. Because bridge is just is, a little, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So it's like you fit little pieces in, right? But it's scalable. You can start with very, very simple puzzles, and then you get more and more complicated. Just like the bidding, you start out with a very simple language, just like learning French or anything like that. You know how to ask for directions or, do
Right.
math or whatever, and all the way up to like, poetry. But yeah, God, I would have loved to keep teaching her. That would have been amazing. Like for so many reasons. Healing someone would have been an incredible, privilege if we could have, you know. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe it would have never happened again and it would have just been like hard on everybody involved. But that's
But
the other
you
thing.
didn't get the chance to find out.
I would have loved to get the
Yeah.
chance. I would have
Yeah.
loved to get the chance.
And for
And
her, I mean, it could have been life-changing for her. If
yeah,
and
yeah,
and her husband.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think a lot when I think about that story, I think a lot about how much of life is sort of locked behind adversity, and it's what you're willing to pay for,
Hmm.
right? So it's like I'm studying singing right now. I love to sing. I always have since I was a kid, but I never really studied it. And I'm studying it online, virtual, sort of similar to us. It's a library that I purchased. And then, I'm taking little one-on-one coaching sessions every 2 weeks. And I don't know how to breathe. Like it's like breathing is singing, right? And I've listened to his lecture on breathing probably like 100 times. And just yesterday I had this moment where I could feel my body do it correctly.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's what it feels like. Oh, that's what it feels like. I gotta remember this. I gotta remember this. I gotta remember what this feels like. And I got so excited. I got so excited. And I just think about how I've been struggling with this for so long and feeling like I'm never gonna get it and knowing I'm doing it wrong. And oh God, this is terrible. And then how I could have let that stop me, right? And
Yeah.
then I don't then I don't have that. I mean, who knows how good a singer I'll become, but I would never have that moment of like, oh, I get it, I understand, right? And our brain gets that dopamine, we get all serotonin, we get all this fun chemicals that get that can be kind of hard to access in life otherwise,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I love about bridge. There's a bridge hand every 7 minutes, right? 7, 8 minutes. So if you mess up a hand, you can just like whoop, get rid of it.
And
And if
start
you
start new.
Yeah, and if you have a great hand, you can coast on that forever. Like you can like I tell stories about some amazing hands. I also like to tell stories about some disasters that Samantha and I have had. We've had some pretty cataclysmic disasters. I think the key to our partnership, bridge partnership, and our relationship is we laugh when it happens. We
Yeah.
we we laugh really, really hard, which freaks out our opponents. They don't understand it. But to me, it's like what, you think I'm perfect? You think I'm like I'm never gonna make a mistake? That's not gonna happen. So
And
so
it's good to be able to laugh at yourself. too, by
Oh,
the
for sure.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, I people who don't laugh at themselves are huge red flags for me. Because I'm like, the human condition is ridiculous. Like if you're not laughing, you're not paying attention, or you're just angry. And it's like there's so much to laugh about.
Mhm.
I I did something yesterday where literally I was like on my phone. I was doing this, right? Like this. I was talking to Samantha, and I'm like, I'm gonna get in the car, and like she's like, "What? You seem distracted. What's going on?" I'm like, I can't find my phone. Can't find my Where's my phone?
I've
She's like, "You mean the thing
done
you're talking to me on?" I'm like,
that.
"Oh yeah, okay, found my phone."
My glasses on top of my head. I could
Yeah,
look around for
yeah.
10 minutes. Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? They're in my
You
head.
gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. I love telling stories about myself being silly or ridiculous or missing something. I actually had a chance right before the pandemic. I was playing with a top flight player. I was actually playing on a sponsored team, which is usually it's three professionals and then a person sponsoring the team. And, Samantha was playing with the sponsor and teaching and learning. And I got to play with this person who I believe he just taken third in a national championship. And I think he's since won a national championship. I haven't kept track of him because the pandemic blew everything up. But I did something stupid at the bridge table, as you do, and he lost it. Like he just started yelling at me. And I mean, I had nothing to say other than sorry. Like, and when he pointed out the flaw in I mean, I made a decision based on the logic that was available to my brain at the time, and that decision was cataclysmically disastrous. And he pointed out the fault in my logic, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Now I know that for the future. Appreciate it. And he just kept yelling at me. And I was like, sir, his name, I won't say his name, but I'm like, look, I've apologized to you. I don't know what else you want from this interaction. Like, I agree with you it was bad. I agree with you that it was, illogical, but I don't understand why you're still yelling. Like, what more do you want? And he then said, that's not the type of decision you make when you're playing with a sponsor. Because he played on a lot of sponsor teams. And I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for, telling me that. And then he calmed way down, way, way down. Uh, and we went on and played. I can't remember whether we won or lost. It's a bit irrelevant. But it made me realize that in that moment, he didn't care about me getting better, right? He was dealing with emotional adversity. Like he was feeling like, the sponsor's going to be angry, that's his livelihood, all this stuff. Like he was feeling threatened, at risk, like his life was at risk, literally his life, right? Because he does this for a living. And then it made way more sense to me that he'd be so angry and so upset. And and we went on and we had a good partnership. We were going to play all of 2020 together. I was learning a lot. I love playing with him. It was so funny because he had a little bit of a reputation for, being hard on partners. And I'd get people take me aside and like, what's it like playing with whatever his name was? I'm not gonna
So
say his
and so.
name. What's it like playing with that guy? And I'm like, I love it. And they're like, yeah, like we saw him like yell at you. I'm like, so what? I screwed up. I don't care. And they're like, oh, okay. It's like I learned. Like that's all that mattered to me, right? I learned. I got better. I was getting so good. And because the way that Samantha and I have designed our life, we didn't, we didn't try to become the best players we could be so that we could play on sponsor teams and travel around and play in tournaments. We try to get good at bridge because we love bridge, but we try to become the best teachers we could be. So like I've studied the neuroscience of learning, I've studied, skill acquisition, I've studied how elite athletes use their eyes, which is a fascinating science, all this stuff because I want to be the best teacher I can be. So it was fun to start getting good as a player. Yeah, like, actually like getting pretty darn good at this game. I'm no slouch, but I'm not, not top flight by any stretch of the imagination. So
Any final thoughts that you want to leave my audience with?
I'd say try it. That's my whole thing. Try it. Come to our YouTube channel, reach out to us via email. We offer a 15-minute lesson, and people say, well, what can I learn in 15 minutes? You can actually learn a lot in 15 minutes. Samantha's 2-minute video, Samantha's 10-minute video on learn how to play. And the reason I say try it is because, like I said earlier, it's not for everybody. Like I'm not saying that every single human being should be a bridge player, but what I'm saying is that people who like this game love this game, and there's
Mhm.
so many benefits to it. And just give it a month of your time, right? Give it a month of trying to play and have fun. That's our number one rule. Samantha and I's number one rule is have fun.
Right,
Because if it's not fun, like why would you keep doing it?
right.
But give it a month, and then if you feel like, yeah, this isn't really for me, I prefer, I prefer bird watching. I prefer, I don't know. There's some amazing grandmothers on TikTok playing video games. It's amazing. They live stream shooting people, sniping people. It's so cool. I'm like, go grandma. So maybe that's it. But I would try bridge. I would want you to try invest a month of your time in bridge because if you like this game, it's gonna be something you can play for the rest of your life and have a lot of fun, and you get all the benefits from it, right? So, stop by our website, shoot us an email, come to YouTube, leave a comment, ask us a question, but just get involved in the game and see if it's for you.
Right. So Brian, you will supply me with all of, where to find you on social media, your email, your website, and I'll put all of that information in the show notes.
Oh, great, fantastic. Yeah, I'll have Morgan send that all over to you.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. Sounds
great.
great. Brian, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on.
Great. This is fantastic.
Yes.
Great. I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you so much.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
maybe I'm going to give it a try as
Well,
well.
I would love for you to give it a try. Check out Samantha's videos on learn how to play in 10 minutes, or there's a 2-minute version, there's a 10-minute version. Check them out because uh, like I can't imagine my life without bridge because like Samantha taught me when we first started dating, and I'd always been a games person, but like I've spent a lifetime playing bridge, and we we would teach during the week, and then we'd go play in tournaments on the weekend. Like that's how much we loved it. So it's like, yeah, I hope you do give it a try. And if you do give it a try, feel free to reach out. And this goes for everybody, but feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, this is confusing or that's confusing because not just learning it, but like where do I go on the website? That's the next thing we're doing on the website is we're creating videos of me going, hey, are you confused? Go here, right? Like we're gonna
Oh,
not just
yeah.
how to use the website, but yeah, please come try the game. Please, I would love if you did.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I
Okay.
really appreciate
Okay.
it.
See you soon.
See
Take
you
care.
soon. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Hey everyone, it's Susan Lopresti. Happy New Year to you. I am wishing all of you a beautiful new year that's filled with everything that you desire in life, right? And most importantly, I wish you an abundance of good health. So, with that in mind, I wanted to let you know that my program, 30 Days Heal to Rejuvenate, has started. So, it's closed out for January. And I had a couple of people who missed out and were asking if I was going to do it again. So I decided that, backed by popular demand, I am going to do it, and I'm starting on February 1st, which is this Saturday, and it's going to run until March 2nd. So if you're feeling stuck or sluggish and you're just ready for a fresh start, right? Like you just don't know, you know that you don't feel terrible, but you just don't feel like yourself. You're a little sluggish, you're always tired, maybe you have brain fog, aches and pains, not getting a good night's rest, unsure of how you should be eating and the things that you should be eating. So if this sounds like you in any way, right? This is your path to be renewed, to have energy, stamina, and also emotional well-being. Because when you're feeling well physically, you'll also begin to feel well emotionally. And the thing is that part of this program, not only am I talking about health and food and ways of preventing different illnesses, but each day we will move our bodies in some way. You know, we may march in place one day or whatever. We're going to be doing a lot of different things. And I don't want to spoil the fun. But going back to the emotional well-being, at the end of each session, we're going to take a couple of moments to quiet our minds, right? We're going to get into a meditative, like either lying down or sitting in a quiet space. And I will be guiding you through a meditation, and I will be sending you Reiki healing energy. So that in itself, if you do nothing but meditate and receive Reiki healing energy for 30 days, you'll see an improvement in your physical health and you'll see an improvement in your emotional health. So that's what it's all about. It's a transformative program that's designed specifically for mature women who are seeking to boost physical vitality through simple, sustainable lifestyle changes, nourish their body and their soul with wholesome nutrition and mindfulness practices, reignite mental clarity and focus with tools to reduce stress and increase resilience, cultivate emotional balance and joy through guided exercises, and also the support of the community that you're in, right? So you'll have me and you'll have other like-minded women as part of this group. This is what you're going to gain. You'll gain a healthier, more energized version of yourself. You'll have tools to make lasting changes in your daily life. You'll be supported by the group of like-minded women, and you'll have guidance from me every step of the way, right? Spots are limited. That's why I shut down the January one, because I don't want a lot of people. I want a small group of like-minded people, right? So spots are limited. So secure your place today and step into February with your purpose and your passion and your positivity. We're going to put a link. You'll see a link at the bottom of this post. And also it will be in the bio if you're on Instagram watching this. And just know that you are going to enjoy this program. It's going to be wonderful. I'm so excited to see your transformation. And I hope that you're excited to transform your health and your vitality and your emotional state into a more positive and vibrant way of living. Again, Happy New Year, and thank you for listening, and I will see you February 1st. Take good care, everyone.